So I just sat down and binged the first season of Class of '07, a series that centers around one of the most terrifying, horrifying concepts I have ever come across in a TV series. Now, imagine for some insane, unfathomable reason that you have decided to go to your 10-year high school reunion. That's right, you decided to go to your 10-year high school reunion for reasons unknown. I won't get into everyone's psyche about why they would possibly decide to do something so terrifying and horrific. And let's not even get into what kind of writer would come up with something so terrifying, so horrific. I don't want to even question what's going on with this writer's psyche. Like, I've seen some crazy horror films in my time that has made me question the people who have created it. I don't want to even touch this. And yet somehow we have still not come to the most horrific part of the story. Now imagine that you are at this high school reunion 10 years after being in high school. You decided to go back and hang with all these people for one night of standing around or whatever. I just don't know why you would want to do it, but imagine you've done that like all the characters in our main series. Then imagine the end of the world. Just imagine a flood and the school, because of its position at the top of a mountain, it's like a Noah's Ark situation, but a Noah's all-girls school at the top of a mountain arc situation. So the world gets flooded and it's just ocean everywhere, and you are the last ones in existence because of you're high on a mountain and you're stuck with everybody from your high school in year 12 10 years later at a high school reunion, and you're all just there and it's the apocalypse and you have to survive. I'm actually getting I'm getting anxious thinking about how horrifying that would be. It's just, and I didn't even have that bad of a high school experience. Mostly. The best way to describe this TV series is Yellow Jackets meets Mean Girls meets Australia. No, not the film Australia, just Australia in general. This show just feels so Australian in all the best ways. The cast is Australian, the humor is Australian, the accents are Australian. It's just got such an amazing Australian feel. I really, really like this series. I found it overwhelmingly fun and hilarious. Like, I think the humor is the thing that at first you're kind of like, ooh, it's a bit cringy, it's a bit off in places. Like, for like maybe half of the first episode, I found it really hit or miss. Like, there are a couple of jokes where I'm like, oh, that's pretty funny. But then there was some kind, just like the tone felt like a bit all over the place. A lot of the performances from like we've got a couple of big heavy hitters that I'll talk about later, but like a lot of the cast feels kind of like unknowns. And I mean, I don't watch that much Australian content, but compared to some of the big heavy hitters that we've got, a couple of them feel like maybe one of their first kind of series, and they feel like they're trying to warm into the character. And I don't know, I would say, and this isn't a good thing to say for most series, and I don't really agree with it, pilots should come out really, really strong. But the first 15-20 minutes, they're all at the reunion, like drinking. So everyone's like kind of a bit heightened and a bit like an extreme version of themselves. They're all really, really drunk. And I think it kind of goes off to a bit of a rocky start. But by like midway through the second episode and for the rest of the series, they are all really, really good. All the characters, I really can't find a weak link. There might be one or two that aren't as funny as others that are a bit more kind of cliche and stereotypical, because we've kind of got all our stereotypes from high school there, like the showboat, the shobes that always lies about like who they are and what they're doing. They've got the queen bee, you've got the stoners and the drunks, and then you've got kind of just like the every lady, the everyman girl character. And you know, we've got all these different kind of niches and cliches. Some of them are a bit more cliche than others, but I would say that considering I loved the whole series, I found the start to just be a little rocky. Like, it took me a little bit to kind of get into this world and this tone of all these girls coming back to their high school reunion. But I think that's kind of part of it. Like, they all feel a bit awkward in this moment. It's a bit awkward going to the reunion before kind of shit hits the fan and it all goes crazy and the Poco begins. The Australian slang for apocalypse apparently is Poco. I wouldn't have thought so, but I love it! I love Australian slang. It's so good. Just pick some part of the word, just condense the hell out of it and say it. And it makes no sense, but I love this country. So this series mostly focuses on like the humor and the comedy that they can kind of wring out of a circumstance like this, like all these girls just being stranded at the school and there's oceans surrounding them and all the chaos that ensues as they all kind of figure out how they're gonna eat, where they're gonna poo, and just all these kind of silly, mundane aspects of kind of living in the Poco. And whilst first and foremost, it is a comedy and it is really funny, I was surprised by how many times I laughed out loud. Like, I love a comedy, I love laughing out loud, but I was like generally like, just like gasping for breath at times. Like, there are some really, really fun jokes, moments, situations that occur during this kind of insane, heightened, crazy situation during the Poco at the school, and just having all these characters come back after 10 years and kind of some of them reverting back to those people that they were at that time in high school. And all of that is really, really fun and funny, but it doesn't lose heart of what makes any good show good: heart. The drama with the heart and the emotion in this series is shockingly powerful. Like, there are some, I reckon there's 3 or 4 moments in this series that just hit so hard. Like, really overwhelmingly powerful moments that are just like so well crafted, and they kind of tease things. Like, from the reunion, people have kind of, I don't know, you just see the looks between them and things that are set up that pay off in the back half of the season that are devastating. Like, truly devastating. Like, one of the main themes is kind of bullying. One of our main characters is kind of the queen bee bitch bully character back in the day, and they kind of self-appoint her, like all the group self-appoint her to be the leader, to kind of push the group in like a way to make sure that they survive, but at what cost? And all of that plays out really interestingly, and at times we loathe her, at times we find sympathy towards her, and most of the really dramatic, intense kind of emotional reveals or kind of big poignant kind of monologues from characters kind of come from this kind of idea of bullying or misinterpretations because the people were so young, and just situations and stuff back from high school. And the series really looks at kind of 10 years later, how has high school still affected us 10 years later? And it's really surprisingly poignant, but it never kind of loses sight of being really funny. So the main character of this series is Emily Browning, who plays Zoe. You may know her from A Series of Unfortunate Events, the Jim Carrey movie from way back in the day, but she's also done lots of other big, amazing blockbusters that everybody loves. Sucker Punch, Pompeii, other movies that are maybe actually good and not the 2 terrible examples I mentioned. But also, I do love Pompeii, but I don't love it because it's good. I love it because it's so bad. It's just, it's a masterpiece of cinema in all the worst ways. Honestly, if you just want to get drunk with a bunch of mates and watch the dumbest thing you've ever seen, but like, you know, Jon Snow is in it, and Emily Browning, apparently. I don't remember that she's in it, but she is in it, according to Wikipedia. She plays the every woman, the character that we kind of come into the story with, and we focus on her probably the most, and she is really, really good. She kind of plays the straight woman to all these other characters that are like really over the top and extreme and all kind of going at 11 out of 10 most of the time. So she's kind of more restrained, but her performance is really, really heartwarming and beautiful and heartbreaking and tragic at times. There are some very intense emotional things with her and her ex-best friend. They haven't spoke for 10 plus years, and all that stuff is kind of the emotional center throughout it, and it's pretty damn good. She is a really, really great actress. I don't know why I haven't seen her in more things, or maybe she's been in a lot of great things. I don't know, but it's kind of surprising to see her in something that feels like this low-key little Australian thing. Like, I don't know how they got her. She feels like a big Hollywood actress now, even though I haven't seen her in that much stuff, and everything I have seen her in is terrible, just the worst thing ever. But it's all the best thing because it's so bad. It's just, even Sucker Punch is almost so bad, it comes back around and I'm enjoying because it's so dumb. It's, her agent sure knows how to pick 'em. But the person who steals the show is Neighbour's own Caitlin Stacey, or Stassi. I don't know how to say her name. I looked at it and I went, let's call her Caitlin S. And she plays Saskia, who is the queen bee bitch character. And she was like the top dog in high school, and she's changed her ways and become a different woman. But being stuck in this little island surrounded by ocean and water, and they're just this little school everybody commands and forces her to be the main character, the leader of the group. And she becomes a bitch again, essentially. She essentially becomes Queen Bee bitch again, and it's exceptional. Her performance is stunning. She goes from being so hilarious and funny and just so commanding and powerful as this character. Like, she walks down the halls and everyone stops kind of acting out and just looking at her, and just the way she commands her presence on screen is exceptional. Like, you truly buy her as this character, but then slowly we kind of peel back the layers of her trauma and all the things that happened to her in the high school, and it gets like pretty dark. This show handles themes and ideas pretty heavily and gets into some dark territory, but it never gets so dark that you're kind of like, whoa, what is this prestige HBO drama? And you're kind of weighed down by the horrible nature of the universe. It kind of does it, but still has fun with kind of exploring elements and still kind of wringing out humor because of those things. And it balances it pretty well. Like, it never makes light of very serious situations, but because of those situations, characters act out in certain ways, and we get crazy, hilarious situations. There's a trial at one point that is just bonkers and insane. She plays the leader really well, and there's a lot of heart behind her, and you hate her, then you like her, then you hate her again. Just to hammer home how good Caitlin Stasey, however you say her name, is as a performer. And I would say super underrated. But once again, maybe I just don't watch enough Australian stuff to know that she's in great stuff, doing great work. But she is so good in the movie Smile. For the 5 to 10 minutes she's in that movie, she is the titular Smile. She's the poster Smile. Her horrifying smile is the face of the movie Smile. A fantastic horror film. Go check it out. She's so good. But yeah, she just commands and steals every scene she's in. And not to say every other little sub-character or minor character or major character aren't fantastic. No weak links. Really, really strong cast. Really, really funny. All over the board. All doing their little cliche, stereotypical things and kind of bringing out mostly more. One little subplot with two characters I found like a little bit kind of, not forced, but they kind of go through a transition and it feels like it comes out of nowhere. And it's one of those things where like, oh, just give that 5-10 more minutes, couple more scenes. That kind of works better. But apart from that, everything works really, really well. It's super funny, super engaging. The concept of this series is insane. Just imagine a school at the top of a mountain, and every wide shot we get, it's just ocean for like you can't see, it's just ocean, but then there's like these islands that's the top of this mountain that's just a school. Like, the visual of that is spectacular. I am surprised for an Australian series they could get so many, like, it's not an Australian movie, it's not like got this big budget, but the visual effects creating this school on top of this just ocean for everywhere. It actually looks surprisingly spectacular and amazing and horrifying, but kind of beautiful at the same time. There are a couple of visual effects in the first episode as everything kind of happens that don't kind of hold up as well, and they're kind of the effects you'd expect for an Australian show of this kind of budget and scale. But for the rest of the series, with the school actually sitting there on top of this ocean as this kind of island, it looks gorgeous. Like, generally a really interesting, terrifying, and amazing kind of concept and visual. Just, yeah. I really like the show. Go bloody check it out.